Yeah. There's something about it that I do like really like my husband, but this time you went, okay, I can kind of see it. I love it.
I was thinking about, you two earlier, because you to try to keep it out of to get out or you for
Joanne drove tonight, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, but how do you get out of
the
there?
only way
There's
to
only
get out
one
is
way in and out.
Is it
riverbank.
oh, so kind of back?
It's only one way out for anyone on that side of Rock Creek.
So this would be a terrible time to have another week.
And he's trying to price it.
You're just in time to get on the bike, then you can go.
You say that, you know what, coming back from 4th of July, somehow, when I walked across that intersection, it was touching my.
We're good, Pari. I see everything.
That's fine. I always feel like we're missing out.
Okay.
Ukulele jam.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Hello, everybody. Feels like I've been a long time since I've seen a lot of people. Why don't we start with roll call?
Okay, roll call, Amber Greaves here, Christie Verba. Here. Gordon Sims.
Here.
Joanne Maneri.
Here.
Karen Noisy.
Present.
Michael McDonald.
Here.
Rita Trainer.
Present.
Todd Gleason.
Here.
And then Leslie's online. And we have Mike Foster.
Yes. Okay. Good. Okay, public comment time, no one's in the room. Do we have anybody online? I don't think so. No? Okay. For those watching the recording later on, this opportunity to either raise concerns, comment on open space business. And you're welcome to do it either online or come join us in the community center. Okay, how about staff and town updates? Mike, you want to start?
Sure. At the last town council meeting, which was the 22nd of June, I believe, the town council voted to turn down the proposal to build 336 apartments over on 76th Street. There's a whole lot of reasons that the town council gave for not supporting that. So we'll wait and see if the developer comes back with a new concept based on the feedback that town council provided. On this coming Monday's council agenda, we'll be hearing updates on Rock Creek Parkway road work. Sounds like the contractor is a couple of weeks behind schedule, and so we're going to hear from town staff on things that we're trying to do to get them back on schedule so that we can make sure that the road is open for school when that starts in August. So, that's kind of the big things right now. Obviously, we had a huge 4th of July barbecue and pancake breakfast. I don't know how many went, but I thought it was a great event. I think town staff added some new features, and
The phone party.
the phone party was huge. Yes. I wanted to get in there and roll around the phone. That was like a lot of fun. So just kudos to everybody and that helped plan and organize that. Everybody I talked to seemed to be really enjoying themselves, and I think interesting because we didn't hold the parade this year. There weren't any complaints about pancake lines because people were able to kind of come in, get in line for pancakes, get their pancakes right away, and they were waiting for a long time. So there's a silver lining with everything. So, so I think that's my update. Unless anybody has questions.
So the 76, because 76th Street's a potential open space property, in theory at least. Was it density or was it evacuation routes or?
Great question. All of the above. There were concerns about density. There were a lot of concerns, especially from the Sagamore neighborhood, about evacuation. And, you know, to the developer's credit, they actually did a comprehensive traffic study, which is not required by the town, but they did it because they recognized that they were going to be putting a lot of homes and a lot of residents in an area that was part of massive evacuation. So again, to their credit, they went above and beyond to do an actual detailed traffic study. The specific concern that I had is it was right next to the CDOT facility, and when we do get snow and they're out plowing roads at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a lot of noise and motors and things. And in my mind, once the developer walks away, that's now the town problem to solve. And I don't know how we solve that in a meaningful way. So a lot of concerns about density, that what they proposed was actually more dense than what was outlined in the comprehensive plan that the council just approved earlier this year. So there were a lot of issues that we raised.
My question, and I should know this answer, but does the park committee look at land acquisition opportunities like we do?
Not that I'm aware of.
Interesting.
They look at
Looked at it.
They look at, especially more recently in downtown where the developer has said we're going to build a park.
Mhm.
Park provides input on some of the features and amenities that should go in there. Park provided a lot of input into the rehabilitation of the north and south pools. But it's not, as long as I've been on council, they've offered input into potential acquisitions.
Okay. Yes.
Is there any update on that development proposal off of 88th Street?
We haven't seen anything official yet. I know they've been, last time, 2 meetings ago, they were here talking, presenting to OSAC, getting feedback. I know that I've heard rumors that they've been out talking to businesses throughout the community to try to gain support and get input and feedback. So I think they're probably still doing their due diligence to figure out what they want to do, what they want to propose and when.
You know, that one really surprises me. I was surprised that they actually took the time to read our playbook in our paper. So I thought that was really good on this committee. But what surprises me is I think this issue is not so much about wildlife and open space. It is again about that high density on a very narrow road.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I mean, we'll see how any future proposals, but I think that needs a lot of discussion.
For sure.
Especially when school starts.
Yep, and with Red Tail Ridge going in, and I know with Red Tail Ridge, they're gonna be extending, I can't think of the road right now, but the one that runs in front of the high school out to 96, so there'll be 2 entrances.
But
But it is
still,
protected.
if you live in Superior,
Sure.
you're not gonna drive to 96 to get to Monarch.
For sure.
That's
for
like
sure.
what we're doing on Rock Creek Parkway right now.
Yep, exactly.
But that's just temporary. Ari, what's news?
I don't really have too many updates other than, programs for fall and winter going up at end of July. That's when the new rec guide will be out. So staff just input it all, like all the new programs are coming in. And moving into those stages, Connor mentioned a good thing about our August meeting, because the Superior Community Center is gonna be closed, like all the staff is gonna be moving into the plaza, which is like we're above Bambi Brewery. It's like, yeah, we have like the offices there, so, yeah, most of the pros are just gonna be shipped over there while the center is being done with their improvement project. So our meeting will probably be moved to either town hall. I don't know if the conference room in civic space upstairs, if we can do it there. I have to find out, but it will not be here. For honest.
Okay.
Nothing else really, that's it.
Can you give us an update on trail counter traffic?
Oh, I've not dived into that yet. I don't have the data pulled for that yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
went over my head in that one.
But you can access that remotely.
Yes, yes. It was having issues with connecting earlier, so Connor went out and had to like kind of reset it. Yeah, and make sure that it was operating, because like it lost service for a little bit. So it's just having to like reset the system again, but it's been collecting it, so I'll have to get those numbers to you.
Okay. I may follow up with you because I think we're gonna have a trail counter conversation
Okay,
in the next month.
okay.
Connor, anything?
The youth corps, they're cruising right along. Today was their first of 2 experiential education days where they've got a roving experiential educator who will go out into the field with them, take them somewhere, do some leadership lessons and activities with them. But outside of that, they've been in Superior the whole time. They are working on about a half-mile trail, section of trail between Autry and Community Park, redoing some of the gravel, top dressing those trails. They've worked through probably, including today's work, maybe 12 tons of gravel. Between all of them, there's 10 youth corps members and then 2 leaders. So between all of them, they've done 464 hours of weeding across 4 different parks, which led to about 100 bags of weeds being pulled. Yeah,
Wow.
I think we might send them over to, I think it's called Madison, over behind Town Hall. Or does it have another name? The closed park.
Oh, you're talking about like behind, on Coal Creek? Yeah, like our original town is right next to the Coal Creek, new parcels, yeah.
How's attrition?
Attrition? Oh, everybody's still employed. They got their
Good.
first paycheck last week.
Wow.
Yeah, my compliment there.
Looking at it like, wait, why is some of our paychecks different? We're all being paid the same. Well, yeah, now you get to learn about W-4s.
Yeah, and is the trail work in Opry Park new trail, or is it just,
Existing
repairing
trail,
and?
it's top dressing,
Top
it's,
dressing.
getting rid of some of the muddy spots, the low spots, covering up the weed barrier.
Okay. Leslie, are you there? You want to weigh in?
I do, and I apologize. I'm not going to turn my camera on because I keep getting a low bandwidth notification. So just a few things. The goats are in that Castle Peak open space right now, which is across from Wildflower Park. They're going to move through there pretty fast just because of the available grass that's there is pretty low, and then they're probably going to move back to Coyote Ridge for a little bit. We have the trailhead signs, the 2 trailhead signs should be going in this week. So I'm open to input for what we're going to put on that mesh area that, you know, we can kind of change the signs out. I think we need to put dogs on leash. We need to put the rattlesnake sign, and then a version of the map. I know that might get updated as we move forward, but we can change that out. So if you have other recommendations of what you want to put on there, I believe it's like 36 by 30 is that mesh area. We might have to make some of our dogs on leash and rattlesnake signs just a little smaller to fit everything on there. But it'll be interesting to see those go in. We've been getting complaints of swallows and swallow nests in the Sagamore neighborhood, and I guess this comes and goes. They are wildlife. They are protected. Once they have once they have eggs in the nest, you're not allowed to knock them down until the chicks have left the nest. So neighbors are struggling with how to mitigate that. So I'm trying to provide them with some information via basically Fish and Wildlife. U.S. Fish and Wildlife has a lot of information on that. So just in case somebody might reach out to OSAC about swallows, we're trying to give good information to neighbors, but it's really not a town regulated item. So that has come up.
Leslie, I can empathize because we have a wreath on our front door and there's a nest with 4 baby chicks.
And they're very cute, but swallows are also
They are
very
very
nasty.
cute. And we do try to time going out our front door when mom and dad are not on the nest.
Yeah. We didn't really have on our agenda to talk about the trail consultant, but we sent out their initial summary of feedback that they got from the 4th of July. That input mechanism is going to stay open for a while, and we'll push that link out through social media. And we also have the sign that they have 4th of July that we'll put out in the lobby. The consultants would like to meet with our trail subcommittee to bounce some ideas off of you for projects. And then they would like to come to our August meeting to talk about those. So subcommittee, you can determine if that's something that's going to fit into your schedule. And I think Pari has all that information as well. And then I have some prairie dog updates, but I can wait until That comes up on the agenda, but that's B. Amber, I can jump in or I can follow you, either way.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me, Leslie, go for it. I'll
Okay.
follow you.
Since I'm talking. I did meet with Misty again, who's gonna be mapping the prairie dog burrows along McCaslin. She is also gonna map Sagamore and Coal Creek Crossing. So we've kind of had a lot of resident feedback on the Sagamore prairie dogs because they've kind of breached into the town space behind there. So we're trying to coordinate some efforts with the county. That's going to start with us mapping them and just determining which boroughs are on county property and which boroughs are on town property. We will then have to address how we go about removing the ones that are on town property. They are pretty close to people's homes. I would say some of the boroughs are within 15 feet of people's homes. So it's getting a little dicey there for some folks who are not comfortable with that. But we'll continue to update this group as well as the neighbors in Sagamore on anything that we plan to do beyond the mapping, which is kind of our first step. We're probably going to have to look at some barrier, both along McCaslin and in the back of Sagamore, at least a partial barrier there. We did get quotes for putting in the hard metal barrier along McCaslin, and it came in at $130K. So we don't have that much money available to put in a prairie dog fence along McCaslin. So we might look at a different design for that versus that hard metal fence. So it's a pretty long section that we need to do there, which is why it ended up being so expensive.
Has the chicken wire fence that you installed along Coal Creek Crossing last year proved effective or not?
I actually walked that with Misty. I think it was just last week. They have breached it in a couple places, and part of that, one, we're not out there monitoring it, and you kind of have to repair those areas as they breach it. But we also haven't completed that all the way across, and there's an opening where the current gate is. So we still, I think, plan to finish that, but we're also going to have to probably step up our efforts to one, either have Misty or a similar vendor go out there on a regular basis to mitigate any breaches, because they will happen, and make any repairs. But then also we may have to look into trapping on the one side so we can relocate them on the other side, and that requires a permit from CPW. So we're looking into all those actions, and unfortunately it's not, none of them are quick solutions. So we're just going to keep working on it, work with Misty, work on the mapping, and then come up with a plan for passive relocation, and then anything else that we might need to do in addition to that.
Amber?
Thanks, Leslie.
So
Yeah, and-
Leslie, before we move on, the two trailhead signs that you were talking about, what's the locations for those?
The one is at the parking lot. Just actually, it's just inside the fence. So once you're in the parking lot, if you go through the little opening of where the trail goes through, it would be right there at the beginning. And then the other one is kind of behind South Pool. So when you walk around South Pool, and there's that little Ramada structure, and the trail kind of branches off and goes up into Coyote Ridge. That's where the second one is going to go. We do have a third one that we're just gonna store it behind town hall until such time as this group decides where we want to put that. Now, one of the locations we had talked about putting the third one is at Pirate Park. And just for your information, we are moving forward with renovating that playground structure. So if we wanted to put that third one at Pirate Park, we probably would wait until that playground structure's installed, so we don't we don't damage it. It's not in the way of putting the playground in.
So will the Pirate Park renovation impact at all plans to put a switchback ramp, trail entrance into Coyote Ridge there?
Nope.
Okay.
No, it'll really pretty much work with the current footprint of the playground that's there. It would be just replacing the equipment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to rename it, or is it still pirate themed?
I don't know. My desire is to find another structure that is pirate themed, but we shall see. That process is being run through the park committee.
Okay. Amber, I think we got off track of prairie dogs. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Leslie, for all those updates. And we have since had a chance to meet with some local experts and got out on the Hardy-Listoka side and walked all of that too. And it's great because we have access to expertise of outside people. Pam Wanick, who basically came up with the concept of passive relocation of prairie dogs and who wrote a very good kind of manual for different types of barriers. So she's been kind of someone who's been we've had some access to and some information from to help with some of the issues that Leslie was talking about. During the last meeting, and I had terrible connectivity, so I was so frustrated. Yeah, I was at my parents' old house and they still had internet connected to a landline. Yeah, I since I called T Fiber the very next day. It doesn't function this way. But anyway, during that meeting, what I was trying to say is, beyond our prairie dog playbook, it's looking like we're needing something more comprehensive in place. That playbook was really designed around like what happens if there's development at Saharias, because at that time, that was kind of the remaining area of prairie dogs that was on within town property. And now we have several other instances or examples of prairie dogs on town property, not just private property within the town. So, I've talked a little bit with Leslie too, and we do have a prairie dog management plan that was written in 2005, but that was really around like Rock Creek's origins. And if you look at that, you'll see that even the names of sites around town, like who knows what that is, it's not, they're not even called that anymore. I've never really found that management plan to be all that useful now. I think the focus of that was to analyze prairie dog colonies at that time, determine the health of the colonies, and then develop some specific management objectives and actions. I mean, there was the statement within that old plan that, if a site's to be developed, that a developer needs to relocate. But I am hard pressed to come up with one example where that actually happened, dating back to the early 2000s. So, yeah, our current playbook does not capture, everything comprehensively that's happening in Superior now with prairie dogs. So, I think we need something more comprehensive, like a new management plan, if we call it that. There's definitely great templates out there, but it would not, it would definitely need the input of, some outside resources, like Misty, for example. We need to be taking inventories of colonies on pretty much, I think, an annual basis, like what's in the town right now and what are we doing, but, here's a great list about why a prairie dog management plan is important for local governments. One, because local governments have strong land use control powers to protect wildlife species. These plans can effectively address land use conflict. So if we lay that out more clearly, it creates accountability for landowners and developers working in the community. It provides an opportunity for collaborative conservation with other local governments. So like, what's Boulder County doing? Do we have it on paper or documented somewhere how, you know, like the conversations Leslie's having with the county? It can incentivize conservation and encourage local environmental stewardship. It can educate people about the plight of the prairie dogs and the grassland ecosystem. What are the indicators of healthy wildlife populations? What other local wildlife depends on prairie dogs? And just an overall, like, fostering humane treatment of prairie dogs. So that's kind of like the high level view, but I do think in a management plan, like, we need things like mapping of the areas, you know, zoning, like what areas does Boulder County have designated as what? Planning for public or for prairie dogs on both public lands and private lands, and just having that laid out, like what falls within each of those. What are our plans as a town if we know that there's conflict coming up? And just policies that we have pertaining to relocation, pertaining to lethal control, and just an opportunity for education and outreach. In fact, I think that's a separate issue. In addition to, I think, needing something more comprehensive, I think there's a lot we could be doing, which I wish we would have done months ago. But I didn't see this coming with Sagamore, and I wasn't even aware of that till recently, but I think, you know, when prairie dogs are like having pups and then there's more dispersal, like when the males are getting kicked out, like people think there's like mass, you know, migrations and movement. And so it's about this time of year where, you know, there gets to be more buzz and activity. But I do think there are some big opportunities for us to be doing some education and outreach, just like we would for about swallows or coyotes or rodenticides. So I'm kind of wondering, you know, what we might do for that. I tend to think that like the print publications we put out are, I don't know, I would love to know what's looked at the most. I get fatigue from reading like online newsletters sometimes. I don't know about you guys, but I do think we need to put some more education out there, because people still have, you know, this impression that prairie dogs just carry disease everywhere, and they're not carriers of plague. They're highly susceptible to plague from fleas. So there's a lot of people who still don't know that, or still don't know, you know, what prairie dogs do in a grassland ecosystem and why they're important, but also how to address conflict. So I think there's opportunities there.
So, couple thoughts. Annual censusing.
Yeah.
Is there a clear time of the year where prairie dog censusing is most accurate?
That's a great question. Well, yeah, I mean,
once a year.
the highest populations you're gonna get are like in the spring and early summer, because that's when the pups have been born. But there's a high rate of like infanticide and natural die-off. So like if you were relocating, you would want to go with like late summer, fall count.
Does census mean counting
I think you
animals, or is it counting active birds?
Yeah.
So could you do a little work and find out what best practice is for how to census and when to census, and you know, we could build that into our annual work cycle, either as a volunteer opportunity involving wildlife urgent team
Yeah,
or
yeah,
or
I've got some print stuff here, examples of inventory sheets and colony analysis, but yeah, I can come back and talk about all those different, assessment measures, and we can talk more about that.
okay, on the topic of expanding, if the Prairie Dog Playbook is really designed for a developer audience,
Right.
is it chapter 1 and you need a chapter 2 for public lands, for town of Superior lands? Or are you thinking something
I think,
more along the line of what Joanna's working on for prairie dogs?
yeah, I mean, we've had those discussions too. I've said it, you know, during that committee, like, oh, I think the prairie dog thing's getting to be a bigger and bigger section of this, but I do think the current playbook could fit into it. It would like merge into it.
Into
there's-
it, what is it?
Like a bigger prairie dog plan.
Okay.
Or a bigger wildlife, but I do think in a management plan, like that could still fit for developers, like specifically for that site. But there's public property being developed and then there's people's public property. And how are, like, if prairie dogs come close to their property lines, how do we look at mitigation of that? And then there's public property, so it's kind of multifaceted.
So I'm trying to figure out,
Who does it?
no,
How-
what we do,
What we do, yeah,
on what kind of timeline and
Right.
who's involved. Like,
In the 2005 plan that she sent out in section 6.1 monitoring, it does specifically, surveys will be conducted each fall to ensure consistency.
right, and we just don't have that anymore, so I think that needs to come back, yeah.
But how was it done? I mean,
I don't know, I don't know,
like us going out and campaigning borough?
no, I mean, I don't know, would it be the contractor who wrote this plan, or do you have any idea on that, Leslie, like the historical,
Yeah,
perspective on this, like way back
I get-
when, do you know?
they started this as an in-house project with staff, and then they hired a consultant to finish it off. I think we would probably want to just follow that same process. I think we can look at this old plan and it's so outdated. Like the properties themselves are so outdated. Some of the information about prairie dogs is outdated. So look at, you know, this went through several different properties, and I don't know if we would use that same format or not, because they're not even in some of the areas that they were in
Right.
Right.
prior.
And I have some really good templates, Leslie, for
Yeah.
like current examples of plans, and
Mhm.
like I'd be happy to put together a rough outline and see what content we already have that could go into some of those, but I do think we're gonna need some outside help, like Misty mapping is.
Yeah.
Would
And
be
I
a
think,
great part of
and
you
I think
know,
we can continue to work with Misty and maybe Pam or whoever those folks are who have that expertise. And even walking around with Misty, she could look at a burrow and say, well, that one's active and that one's not. And I don't know that volunteers could do that.
Yeah,
you
I know
know.
that, yeah.
I'm looking at older,
Also, it's not pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just trying to figure out how many dogs per burrow or what time, you know, all that stuff. There's a lot of information, I think, that those folks who work in that realm every day kind of have that information readily available.
I was in older counties, because they have online how they map.
Yeah.
And they map by acres, and then there's some like estimated number of animals per burrow that they then figure out an estimated number, but they don't try to count every single prairie dog. They go by number of acres.
I think on that note, they usually hold an annual meeting every year, and it's usually like in Longman, and you know, it ends up being something I can't go to, but I always go back and read through what they present annually and like which areas they're doing different things in with prairie dogs, whether lethal or relocation. So I'm gonna try to make a point this year. I think it's usually in like December to go wherever that meeting might be held, because some of that goes obsolete too. Like even, you know, like the area behind Sagamore, you know, initially I looked at the map and I was like, wait a second, that's like designated on their map as conservation area. So yeah, it gets a little bit murky, but,
Are the topics in that old plan still relevant? And it's just the
some
detail
are.
about how the community has changed that
It's
needs
just not,
to be
it's not
refreshed?
super user friendly, I didn't think.
No.
Like, what do you do? Yeah, it's just
It's
pretty,
87 pages long.
yeah.
So what I
That's
heard you
robust.
volunteer to do, Amber, was to start with that 2005 document and kind of rough out where we might go, what we may need.
Yeah, and maybe look at more current templates and see if that might be a better fit.
Do you want help from around the table, or do you want to take a first crack at
Feel
that?
like rough outline, that's okay.
Okay,
Maybe rough outline just for some suggested sections and content. And then, but, you know, and there would be some pieces that I or whoever could fill in, but obviously other pieces that we need other expertise and help with.
so what do you propose for a timeline?
I mean, I can come back next meeting, hopefully, with just like a basic outline of some sections and compare to that 2005, like what's still relevant, what's not.
Okay.
And just based on current needs. in the
I'm not
community.
trying to arm twist you or rush you, I'm just trying to get a sense for
Yeah,
where we're going and when.
yeah, I can, if that's as long as Leslie and Pari, if you guys feel comfortable with that, I don't think it's something we have to right away look to, like, oh, we need to contract this out to somebody, because I feel like we have our fingers on the pulse of what's happening in the community with this, but but Leslie, if you have any thoughts, let me know.
I think starting off the way that you've indicated, coming up with a template, and then, you know, if it gets to a point where we need that level of expertise, we can either work with Misty or look for another consultant to come in to help us out. But I think that's a great place to start. And I mean, there's just a lot of pieces of that old plan that we can say, well, this is not relevant. This is not relevant, you know, and peel that away. And then, you know, if you're willing to look at some of the newer plans out there, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, happy to do that. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yeah.
In the meantime, are there any opportunities for just basic education in terms of town communications, or maybe that's a later agenda item?
There was just Ashley just did a walk that I went on about a month ago, and it was really informative.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, there weren't that many people that attended.
yeah, I think something.
I've talked with our communications team a little bit about building out like a page on prairie dogs. Like we have information on geese, we have information on coyotes on our website. If we can build out some greater depth of information on prairie dogs, then once we have that, we can do some social media and then continue to push people to that page. Like for more information on prairie dogs, go here.
Okay.
But you know, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding out there. So education is good.
I don't know if any of you saw that display that Ashley had at National Trails Day, where she had like, it was something like common misconceptions about certain animals, and prairie dogs and geese were on there. I can't remember what else, but like that was great information. I was like, man, just to take that section, you know, right there and create something out of it would be helpful. But yeah, I think that's a good start, Leslie, probably ties into our, what we're doing on our wildlife, our committee as well. But yeah, let me know if you need some help with some content for that, or if that might come from Ashley. I don't always know like the scope of, you know, what she's asked to do.
Yeah, I think we can ask Ashley for input. We can get stuff from CPW, you know, and additionally, I think I want to make sure to present both sides of the story. Like they can be a nuisance, and when do they, you know, when did they start to become a nuisance when we have to manage them? And that's, you know, there are residents on that side of the argument as well, so.
Yeah, I think like in the way we would for any other animal.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay, I'll check in with you,
Sounds good.
in a week or so, see where we're, see if August is still a reasonable time.
Okay, thank you.
It sounds like you're volunteering to bite off a pretty big chunk.
Yeah, well,
Okay, let's move on to etiquette and speed limit signs. That there was a recommendation document that I forwarded from the subcommittee this morning. I apologize. That
Can we display it?
I don't
Already have
know. Pari, do you have it to display or not?
I made hard copies.
If you've got hard copies, let's just do hard copies. It did seem to not be cognizant of the fact that we ordered trailhead signs months ago on approved for the parking lot and for South Park. I was surprised to see that there. So that part is probably, it is water under the bridge.
Well, weren't we going to add to the ones that were being purchased? I thought we can go through it here, but I thought that was the plan versus. So I thought we acknowledged that there were coming, we could add to them.
Yeah, because we knew what we discussed.
Yeah, but he was saying we didn't know they were coming, but I
Yeah,
thought that was.
The Coyote Ridge Trailhead is gonna always have a trailhead sign,
Right,
right? And
and the pool and South Pool and South Pool.
South Pool.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, South Pool. We have other recommendations here, and certainly, I think
You ought to walk.
Warden's got it covered.
Walk us through it.
You wanna go
Yeah.
through it, Warden? or-
My misconception was that we looked, one of the signs that we saw over at Davidson Mesa, which is pictured here, is a pretty efficient and complete set of information about the trail and, you know, trail and that type of thing. And so we talked about, could we duplicate that type of a sign in exactly the two locations that we're just talking about. So that's redundant, but it may be something that we address with how do we put this type of information into these new trailhead signs that Leslie was talking about.
So Leslie, you were looking for recommendations for how to fill that 30 by 36 inch mesh
Sure.
on those on those two trailhead signs.
Yeah, if there's information people think is important, and I think the map is important.
Is the general format of the new sign likely to be like this Colton trailhead sign that's pictured from the?
I haven't seen the actual, what was actually engineered or purchased, Leslie.
It was exactly the same design that you took pictures of. They basically produced that exact.
That Colton trailhead.
Bolton Trailhead, or I gave you a Boulder County
Yeah,
picture.
the Boulder County one. So it has
It's similar.
it has a trailhead name, so it's gonna say like Coyote Ridge Trailhead North, Coyote Ridge Trailhead South, and then really it's just a blank slate. So it's like metal mesh that you can attach different things to.
So it's like this Colton trailhead sign, actually.
I mean, I think the key takeaway, and I was gonna mention it when you were going through your update, Leslie, is, you know, if there's real estate available on the signs, the trailhead signs, we could fill that, or not fill it, but we could use that available real estate for some of these etiquette signs. And the Davidson Mesa, I thought that was a really good example, because they have a combination of speed limit and trail etiquette, like on one side. So I think kind of a summary, I guess, of the recommendations is, you know, where we have a trailhead sign where there's parking, for example, the new Coyote Ridge trailhead, we have the chance to educate people as opposed to like when they're on the trail rushing by, they're not going to stop to read something. Unlikely. So those would be the opportunities to add more information about trail etiquette, more information about the speed limit expectation for the trail, and then the smaller signs would be on the trail itself. So that as somebody's moving, they're not going to stop to read it, but they can see a sign that says 15-mile-an-hour speed limit, right? So we could use, I think we want to look at the trailhead signs that have been ordered, and then we can make recommendations about like where to place, you know, either etiquette signs or speed limit signs within that real estate that's available. I gotta imagine that there's a creative way that we don't have to create new signs, just use the real estate that's already there on those trailhead signs.
Except for the speed signs. That
Yeah, the speed limit signs, I think the smaller ones in particular lend themselves to being visible on the trail while you're moving. And they have to be very simple for that reason. But at the trailhead, you can get into a little bit more detail as they did, you know, in the Davidson Mesa example that's shown there. And some others.
No, at Davidson Mesa, you guys aren't talking about putting something that we would put paper flyers in if they have on theirs, right?
No,
Then I think the
I think you
recommendation
should
is great.
enlarge that speed sign right there, and
Yeah,
instead of having that thing for flyers, make that bigger.
the other
Make
major,
a trail etiquette.
yeah, the other major thing that we talked about was, and we know Leslie's thing that we're not parked, but it was, I think our main thing also was to get some speed limit signs, and this one that's here, we really liked for putting on the major sidewalks through the two major parks in Superior. So maybe you guys are already doing that, but that was the other thing we talked
We like that one too.
Kristen, which sign?
about. This
The white Erie sign?
Yeah,
Okay.
and you know, side barcode and everything, you know, make it.
yeah, because you know, and as Chrissy said, the discussion that we had is where you tend to have more user conflicts is the paved concrete trails like Purple Park, Community Park, where you have people doing all kinds of different things. I see it less frequent on the open space trails just because they're not as multi-use. They're generally, if you're out in the middle of open space, it's almost always bikes. And yeah, so I think the speed limit signs would be particularly well suited for those concrete trails. I know that's not our purview, right, Leslie? I mean,
This is part of ours.
right? But that's where they would be more useful, in my opinion, because that's where you get people going faster on all kinds of different things,
Yeah.
or people walking strollers and such.
I think it might be worth trying to get parks buy-in and then make that recommendation to council. I think they would be happy. I mean, they were part of that initial etiquette campaign, although the members have kind of changed out a little bit, but I don't see why they wouldn't be interested in being, you know, basically a co-sponsor of bringing that idea to council.
So there's Michael is making a distinction between dirt trails and concrete trails.
Yep.
Leslie, what do you consider, whose domain is Autry Park area? That's a concrete trail, is that open space or is that, park and rec?
You know, there's a lot of gray there.
Yeah, and then I was gonna ask the same question about the west end of Rock Creek.
Yeah, I think, I don't know that it matters because I think the etiquette is the same, whether it's a paved trail or a crush or fine trail. But I think when we initially talked about, you know, divvying the responsibility up. The developed parks, the parks that you mow, the park areas that are mowed are more in the realm of the park committee. But if you're a trail user, you're going through developed parks and you're going through open space. So I think it makes sense.
So what are you suggesting for us to move forward? Are you suggesting we put together a proposal and pass it to parks?
I think that would be great. They meet next week, so I don't know, we might be able to get it on their agenda or get it on their agenda for.
Leslie, can I ask a clarifying question? Does the town currently have a speed limit on trails in its existing ordinances?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The town, okay.
To our surprise.
Okay.
Right.
So we thought we were gonna propose one.
Okay.
I thought that was the state.
So
Yeah, I think
my suggestion would be that the memo that Todd and team wrote be slightly amended to just note that the speed limit already exists in existing town code.
Yeah, it's not, we're not making
it up. It already exists, and all we're asking to do is add signage.
It's consistent statewide and within other counties.
I'll try to.
So Leslie, would you like this group to recommend specific locations for the park people to consider? So it's specific, or?
So our discussion that we had is, sorry, Leslie, I didn't mean to interrupt, because we talked about that, and rather than say specifically put it 100 yards from here or there, say the commuting areas like community park, and then like park and other people who are on town staff decide where to put them specifically on the trail. But that's where there's more user conflicts, in my view, than on the dirt trails is, and those, so we would say Golden, Community Park, Purple Park as examples, but leave it up to the town to figure out like how to use them and where to put them. You know?
Yeah, and you could even say in high traffic areas or high conflict areas, and those may change over time. The other thing is, I'm a proponent of trying to use existing signposts rather than put in new ones, if we can, if that makes sense. But just the idea, you know, it's hard to enforce it because one, most bikes don't have speedometers on them, and two, getting out there and actually clocking people is pretty difficult for anybody to do. But it's more of the idea that, hey, you're entering a congested, high conflict area. Please be aware, speed limits do exist.
Okay, anything else you'd like us to incorporate into a communication to the Parks Advisory Committee?
I think keeping it simple is best. Get them to buy into the concept, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, and that's nice to add. There's one other sign that and we didn't talk about it until afterward. There's another one about passing. One that I saw on Cold Creek Trail that said call out when passing, and it gave some just general guidelines about how to pass somebody on the trail. And it was very succinct, that yellow one that I sent. That would be another one we want to recommend to park, because that's where you get into the complex. It's about passing most of the time. To Leslie's point, you can't really clock anybody. A lot of bikes don't have a speedometer anyway. It's hard to enforce.
One that was done up with the speed limit sign.
No, it's that yellow one I sent to you in email. Okay, I'll send that, but I guess the takeaway is the same. It's just we might have some additional example of signage.
There's on here, it says announcing and passing.
There's one on.
And the
Yeah, there's that
lower
big one, but there's a small one that's suitable for like when someone's moving, that's easier to.
And Leslie, you're looking for these two advisory committees to have a recommendation to council, or is it a recommendation to you and staff? Is it a council issue? Seems like it's.
You know, I think
Awful.
it's a
Walking down
good, that's a
the
good
roofs of
question,
council.
Todd. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think that I would also like to get input from the sheriff's office. So maybe we start with running it by them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send.
All right, any other thoughts, questions, suggestions?
Does Mike, what's your take on it? Doesn't need to go before council?
I'll let Matt Magley make the decision, but from my perspective, that seems like something that the OSAC and town staff could work through, and if there's issues that need to rise to a council level, that's fine, but I mean, you guys have had a really good, robust discussion, and town staff is pretty well informed on this issue, so I personally don't know that it needs to go to the council for discussion, but I'll let Matt make that call.
And I can run that by him. So
Okay.
I think we can get Park on board. We can send it to Sergeant Solomon. He can take a look at that. He might have some feedback. If we do plan to put these at any of the county trailheads, we might want to get their input as well.
And Leslie, if you and Matt decide it doesn't need to come to the council, which I totally support, then maybe it's just including a blurb in Matt's Friday updates.
Yep, I think that's a great idea.
We did have, 2 recommendations for, Boulder County, signage, I think Orman, Roche, and Colton. So, makes sense, Leslie.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I guess we'll work offline on this one.
Yeah.
All right.
So you know, we can.
Wildfire mitigation versus habitat protection.
Okay, so we, so a couple of us been working on some, research and kind of a format for making a recommendation to town staff on how to balance, right? And I know that a number of us have, at least our perception is that the wildlife in general has suffered due to the wildfire mitigation that we've done. We all know wildfire mitigation is absolutely necessary, but we don't want to have, too much of an impact on wildlife if we don't have to. So we've met with, and we've talked about this as part of the initiative that Joanne's leading to with the wildlife management plan. We've met with a few experts. We've met with the wildfire partners. We've met with a team at CSU called the Sustainable Landscape Team that specializes in wildlife and all the things that go around grasslands and all that kind of thing. And they have a Boulder extension that we met with and got some recommendations from them. We've also, through Todd's advanced chat GPT skills, looked at a ton of references over the internet. And so there's a lot of really good information there. And then we also looked at the Louisville wildfire hazard risk assessment that they had produced. Amber sent it out to us, I think, a month or so ago and reminded us that that's there. And that actually had a lot of good information about balancing or just the impact on wildlife as well. So we've come up with what we're trying to do is create really just a one-pager of very simple recommendations. I think a number of them town already knows about. I don't know in whole if they're, if some of these things are known, but what we'd like to do is get everyone's feedback on this, distribute it for feedback, and ultimately meet with your guys's wildfire consultant that you've hired, and just have a discussion with that person, maybe at OSAC, and then kind of see where we could take some of these recommendations. So we've got to get it out to everybody. We had kind of a short time frame to turn around, so we didn't have like a public meeting and that and stuff, but we've got a number of things that we've extracted so far. And I think one of the things too, when you talk about prairie dogs, that cited a whole bunch too, right? Because obviously prairie dogs create great breaks and things like that. We don't have that in here because it's where they're at is kind of, but we probably could put it in here. So anyway, that's what we want to do. We want to just make sure we've got the support to kind of take that forward. And
were there any items or strategies that stood out to you that you were like, oh, this is
Yeah, I think.
awesome, and we're not doing this.
So, you know, obviously, the biggest fuel reduction, methods are being used by town already, right, which is mowing and grazing. And trying to reseed, I think you guys are still doing seeding natural grasses or more natural grasses and weeding, right? So those are the big ones, but for mowing and grazing, there's definitely some things that stood out to me, which is, and down at like Rock Creek, it seemed like that was done pretty well, but I've heard not so well in other areas, which is like protecting the riparian areas, not mowing everything, but leaving islands of grasses. But really only mow what you have to that are near the structures. But at least if you're gonna mow more than that, to leave the islands, there's a certain way to mow so that it allows for escape from animals if, you know, if it's in the middle of, a season where they might be heads down in those grasses and so forth. You know, things like, just the time of year will play into it, because there could be animals that are nesting in those grasses, and so there's a certain time of year where they're kind of done nesting. So if you absolutely have to mow, you're not going to clobber them, kind of thing. So things like that.
Yeah, their recommendation was to wait till July 20th to mow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to avoid winter and spring mowing.
Yeah. Exactly.
And to leave 4 inches of.
Yes,
grass.
that's another great one. Yes. So 4 inches on average, like we asked a lot of questions, and some of this was in the Louisville report too, but we did ask a lot of questions, like how do you leave an average, like how do you leave 4 inches of grass when there's goats, right? Because they just eat right to it. But they basically said it's on average, you know, so if you can move them around and not repeat areas over and over, and leave an average of a certain amount, sometimes 6 inches, depending on what kind of grass it is, things like that.
What was the name of the researchers that you talked to?
So
The researchers that you talked to?
it was CSU's, it was a Boulder extension
Okay.
of CSU, and they were their sustainable landscape team.
Is this the same?
And they were recommended, they were recommended by Wildfire Partners, and they brought them to on the call.
Is this the same group of, Leslie, you might know this, is this the same group of researchers that were researching test plots west of town a few years ago to figure out, is it better to mow, is it better to do control burn, is it better to graze, is it better to spray?
It's a good question.
They may have been involved in the county properties.
Okay.
Because this is a team, I think they've been in existence for a little bit. And they are doing a lot of data collection, which is great. They haven't done a lot of publishing of that data, but I think they're working on it, and they are gathering information out there on a lot of the, you know, because they're CU and they are based out of Boulder, they are doing a lot of that work on Boulder properties. But they did speak at a recent workshop that I went to, and it was really interesting to hear their feedback. So I think they would be a great group to get input from. And Wildfire Partners also is, you know, actively out there in many areas, you know, throughout the county conducting wildfire mitigation. So there's been a lot of talk about how the language in the wildfire documents is interpreted and how we work with that to balance the natural landscape, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of their documentation online has even changed. I noticed in the last year and a half or so to kind of even mention it at all, you know, so it's just something everybody's learning.
So it sounds like it's complementary research that's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Chris,
Yep.
wasn't it with the report that there were some comments that, you know, the amount of mitigation we do, you know, will go so far that when we have a situation that we had, you know, 2 years ago with the 80-mile-an-hour winds and all that. You know, your mitigation efforts, a lot of it kind of, all bets are off just because of the.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends, and I think they said depending on like where you're facing and all that, but yeah, in some situations, absolutely.
Yeah.
House
And-
hunter.
And the idea that the fences were like some conduits, you know, all the way like fuses almost.
Yeah.
So trying to keep grasses, you know, some
Away from
distance
fencing.
away from the fences
Right.
that border, you know, personal properties.
Right.
Or,
Which is where their 30 feet recommendation.
yeah.
Yeah,
And if you
Yeah.
talk to the firefighters, what they're gonna tell you is we're just buying time. We're buying time for you to get out and for them to get
Yeah.
in. The mitigation typically is not that you're ever gonna stop the fire necessarily, but it's allows them time.
Mhm.
so Leslie, Christine, I'll coordinate with you. We're thinking that if we can get, this draft document, edited up and passed around for comment among the committee this month, that we might invite, the fire mitigation person to our August meeting.
So I think
So
you're
we
talking
want
about
this
our
stuff.
town staff, right? So Allison.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Well,
I already
no,
get.
No, it's not Allison. We thought you guys had a consultant that you had brought in for wildfire mitigation.
We.
Are we?
Yep. So we did hire a consultant that is overseeing the work that's being done, and I could reach out to them, but it might make sense. I mean, they're hired for a specific project versus to give a I mean,
So
they're still an expert, so we could still reach out to them, even though their contract with us is really to implement the work that's in our plan. But yeah, I guess I misunderstood that. I thought you were going to ask our disaster preparedness team to come in.
I think it's whoever is making decisions about how we mow, how we graze, any other mitigations being done, who's making decisions about that based on what information. Whoever that person is, I think is who we just want to have a discussion with.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily one group, but it might make sense to start with our disaster folks, because they're interpreting the guidelines that is in the community wildfire protection plan that our fire district put together, and also Boulder County put together one. So they're interpreting those recommendations and making, recommendations to parks and open space for implementing those.
Okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we'll work with you to get the right people at the table.
Sure.
And until we'll distribute this.
And we'll work on that.
Okay.
Split it around. Yeah, I think we can probably do it the next.
Yeah.
We can deal with it on the next month. Timeline.
Yeah, I'm gonna just ask a question. This may seem, I don't know, a little something, but Leslie or Mike or anybody who's interfaced with the county, do you know, in terms of cattle grazing, has there ever been any discussion at the county level that you know of about grazing bison versus cattle, which I'm not even talking about our trails right now, so that's not even part of the discussion, but if there's been
there probably are discussions going on, but because we don't graze cattle in Superior, we haven't been necessarily in those conversations. But I know at this last workshop I went to, there were people grazing cattle. There were people doing, they like to call it goat browsing. And and I think there's different methodologies for cattle, but I did not hear about bison, but that doesn't mean it's not going on.
And Christie and I reviewed a number of papers that compared pros and cons of cattle versus goat.
Yeah.
I don't
And
recall
really catch
bison
that.
ever being mentioned.
No, I mean,
was.
it's a whole bigger discussion about, well, wildfires are just, they're part of it all part of the landscape, but, in terms of restoring grasslands, like bison are part of that discussion.
Before I left the county, they were having some conversations
Really?
with a couple of groups to pilot bison grazing, but that was way up in the north part of the county,
Okay.
because you don't want the public around bison.
Right, like, we can't have that.
And so it's, right, and so it's, how do we put bison in, or where can we put bison in an area that is not heavily trafficked by trail visitors and, or just general members of the public that want to come by and take selfies with bison, because
Right.
we've seen in Yellowstone, sometimes that doesn't get very well. And bison can jump a 6-foot fence.
Really?
Yeah, there's YouTube videos of bison jumping a 6-foot fence, especially males during mating season.
Yeah.
They're pretty determined. So
Yeah.
it was really centered around how do we provide a safe safe place for the bison to graze and help restore landscapes while keeping the public at more than arm's length.
Yeah, I'm just curious if that did happen, how.
Here's an article from the Daily Camera in 2025 that the Boulder County Commissioners allocated $1 million for fencing to be used for potential reintroduction of buffalo on county open space.
Well, buffalo on it, mine's one.
Interesting.
There you go.
I was just curious.
Go Buffs.
Okay, Christie, I have our homework cut out for us.
What's that?
We have our homework cut out for us.
Yeah.
Good.
I think we need to distribute, clean up.
And we'll coordinate with you, Leslie.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Okay. Kara, you want to lead us in a discussion of,
So I'm so excited to actually be able to have this conversation with everyone, because if you recall, the whole idea of art in open space really emerged back in February. And if you recall, there was a resident or corporation, not sure which, but wanted to go down to our creeks and make wood art from the dead trees. And it really generated such a response from our group saying, like, no, we love art, but it shouldn't be a point of destination within open space. So anyway, from that, if you recall, we started thinking, well, we'll write a position paper. And I've really struggled with this because I think we're all on the same sheet in terms of art is not a destination in open space. I've researched, I've tried to see what other municipalities, even Boulder County, do, and actually I haven't found a specific document yet. But what you do see is open space is a wonderful place to invite art, such as plain art activities, not temporary or permanent structures. But then, honestly, I reached out to Leslie and Pari, and I loved it because I was asking who can I talk to about this, because I don't think that's what we're looking for. And Leslie sent us today just a clip from the open space management plan. We already have some of this. And so in our master, or in our open space management plan, verbiage right now says additional development items such as shade structures, art installations, restrooms, bike parks, climbing or fitness equipment or structures should be approved for the desired location through our committee and the town council. So now I'm left wondering, I think this is so much bigger than open space. I'm almost wondering, and I really want your thoughts on this. Is this a position paper or is there some sort of link that people go to if there's something that they're wanting to do, there's a process, you know, because, and then I also started thinking about, and goodness, some of us work on the wildfire, Marshall Fire Remembrance Subcommittee. And I can't recall a time, I mean, we've talked about how the proposal is for that to go in open space, but this committee never voted on it. You know, so I think, yeah, this is where I really want everyone else's thoughts too, because I don't think we can say defiantly no to art. I mean, Marshall Fire Memorial, we're making an exception, although can't really say we're making that exception. Town council approved it, but town council didn't get input from this committee. And so now I'm just wondering.
Guess I never considered the art.
And then I go back to even when so about the time that several of us joined this team, Orman Roche, I mean, we wanted to have a ribbon cutting, but then COVID, I mean, it didn't happen, but a big piece of the Orman Roche trailhead, other than just the parking, was the physical structures that we have there, the bike racks, the signage of the mountains, all of that actually did involve a lot of this committee input. But even then, we made recommendations. We did make recommendations for council, but I don't know, does that need to be in a process, a checklist? Does the town already have it? It's in our management plan, so now I'm left thinking, I don't think that we need a no art and superior position paper. You know, because
case by case basis.
Yeah, and I don't think we're getting flooded by it, but at the same time, we don't want to be excluding those other things of, we want to put a bike rack here, or we want to have shade structures or a bench.
Well, I think that language you read covers it, right? And but to your point, it doesn't come up, like, it's not a weekly thing, it doesn't come up that often. So if someone has a request, they bring it through the process that you described, I think it would be vetted.
But we don't use it, so that's
Right.
my question then for, yeah, Leslie, this is our current version, right?
This is our current version, and it is reflective of what is in the town ordinance for open space natural areas, which limit development and that focus on the natural condition of the land. So if you look through the ordinance, you know, there's it's really one sentence definition of what open space natural is. But then if you go farther down in the document, it lists out different land use and what's allowed and what's not. And in open space, much of the structures, so if you wanted to put a restroom in, if you wanted to put a shelter, if you wanted to put something more than a trailhead sign in, it requires a special recommendation or special approval. Now, it doesn't say what the process is for that, but our typical process for approving things would be a recommendation from a committee that goes to town council. So I think we've captured it. It might be something that we need to remind ourselves of what's in the ordinance and what that intent is, and that's why we put that statement in the management plan.
Leslie, I'm glad you mentioned the word intent, because I agree that I think having a defined process will help whoever's submitting their idea to figure out, you know, how to work through the approval process. And as we have probably all experienced at some point in our lives or our careers, we have an idea of what we think, let's say, art is, and somebody has a different idea of what art is, and as long as they're gone through the process, do they get approved? And so I think coming back to what's the intent behind the verbiage that we have, the process that we have, and are those consistent with whatever's being proposed? Art is one of those things that's like beauty's in the eye of the beholder, in my opinion. And so again, what one person might think is a wonderful thing, others might, well, that's a conflict, and you know. So just I want us to be mindful of that as we think about the process, because I certainly wouldn't want somebody to just be able to sort of check the box and it automatically gets approved by default if it doesn't meet the intent of the language that we have. And if the language that we have, we think be modified, then let's have that conversation.
And maybe that's where we go, because I think back to that moment of the carver, right? And I believe, and Leslie Parr, you might know better, I think that came to both of us, town council as well as committee.
Correct.
But I wonder if on town council, because I don't remember listening to it. But I wonder, you were already armed with our input actually, but I wonder if you hadn't been, if you would, as a council, if you would have said, yeah, we need to defer to open space. Would have there been a process there saying, actually, this is something I would really like to ask our committee? And I don't know if that exists. I mean, it does here, but is that your first reaction? Or is it one as elected officials for our town, you just make the decision on your own?
I can't speak for everybody else. I'll say that my gut reaction probably would to have taken action on the issue, because I'm under the impression that staff has worked through the process, and that's now why it's sitting in front of council to make a decision.
That's fair.
So if there's a process that doesn't exist that should exist, then
so backing that up, then we should ask Leslie Parr, is there something there where you would ask, and you know, and it wouldn't just be our committee, right? I mean,
Before we get on
Park
to the council agenda.
have an issue too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, sometimes things just come directly to council and we don't necessarily intercept them ahead of time. And then it's kind of up to council to help say, well, let's get input from the appropriate committee or not. I mean, they can choose to make a decision as well. But I think there were a couple things with this particular idea, is that sometimes people don't think of our creeks as open space. And so it wasn't evident that, you know, and some of them are, you know, in very close proximity to develop parks. But I think it wasn't like, oh, we want to put a piece of art out on Coyote Ridge open space. It was, there's an idea to do a art project along our creeks. And so I think, you know, certain members of council may not have immediately thought, oh, that's open space. But I think that when it comes to art, that a lot of times they look to the CAPS committee, and maybe the CAPS committee doesn't understand what OSAC's perspective is either. And so maybe if you did write a point of clarification or a position paper or even just a memo to CAPS, you know, or an informal conversation is even fine, that you know, open space natural has some restrictions based on town ordinance and as reflected in our management plan. Not that we would say no to art, but that the expectation is that would be a conversation with the committee.
Like that, definitely do.
as a hypothetical.
Yeah.
This is a hypothetical.
Yeah,
You know, we had the prairie dog art a few years ago.
yes.
Hypothetically, if CAPS and an artist wanted to put some type of art structure at a trailhead, at an open space trailhead, that, I don't know, encapsulated whatever open space looked like and felt like in an art piece, is that something that, you know, would that be consistent with the guidelines to say, yeah, it's like,
But you got, you know, a lot of our concern was the impact on the open space, you know, and the wildlife and so on. But, you know, you might be in a situation like you're describing, Mike, where, you know, maybe what's proposed doesn't really have that type of an impact, but then you end up into a subjective evaluation of, well, that's really ugly.
right.
You know, and who's gonna deal with that type of problem? And,
Cause I'm thinking, if the chainsaw person comes back and says, well, I won't put it next to the creek, but can we put it in a trailhead or?
exactly.
And well, I'm glad that you mentioned this, because I was trying to find it, and I have never seen, and I'm on a lot of trails in Boulder County, I've never seen that at a trailhead.
No.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know what the guidance is that deters that kind of artistic invitation.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wanted to do an art installation over a creek, you know.
Yeah.
Army Corps of Engineers.
Yes, I
think the verbiage, you know, the way we're talking through it is, it's based on the proposed location of whatever piece it is. If the location that's proposed by the artist is open space, then it should come to review through OSAC. If it's not, then it's for a park or somebody else to decide, right? Like if they wanted to put it in community park, for example, goes to park, then it goes to park. We have no say in it, but if it's on designated open space as the proposed location, then I would think that it should come to the OSAC. But to your point, or whoever made the point, maybe they didn't even think of those trees as being quote unquote open spaces, just as part of community park, and it's just sitting there and, you know, but to your point, I mean, I think if we want to write a recommendation to park, whomever, to say, if you get a proposal for art and it happens to be proposed for open space, please, you know, bring it to our committee so that we can evaluate that for the impact of the open space.
Yeah.
But I think reaching out to CAPS
as well.
Yeah.
CAPS,
Yeah, or parks.
Probably, yeah, anybody who's gonna review an art installation.
Kara, sum up what you think.
Yeah, so my takeaway of this is, instead of writing a position paper on just art and open space, my takeaway is reaching out to CAPS as well as park. And I don't think this is just about art though, but if there is any request to bring any kind of temporary or permanent installation, whether it's art or a bicycle or a stand or anything like that, as what is in our master plan here, any kind of shade structure, art installation, restroom, I think we should include all of that, because we're not always just saying no to art. It's actually, we want to consider all of this, and then let them know that the expectation in regard to our management plan is for this committee to have an opportunity to review and consider the overall impacts that it would have to our town's open space.
I think that's
Okay.
good.
That's my understanding. Am I missing anything?
Yeah. No, I don't think you're missing anything.
Okay,
Okay, you wanna,
I'll do
Knock
that,
out together?
yes,
and
absolutely, because I mean, it just seemed, yeah, I couldn't, and I'm gonna continue to look, and if Leslie, if you see something, because now I really am wondering, where is the guideline that Boulder County has such that we don't have some sort of obelisk at Marshall Trailhead, or at Green, the Flatirons Vista, or any of those. I mean, you see a trail sign and speed limits, but not art.
My understanding is they generally don't allow art installations, but I can't point to a document that says that, so I
was
can
just looking
ask.
for, like, I was just looking for some sources, but.
Yeah, and I
And it
think
could
that,
be the way the sales tax language is worded, such that it's for natural land preservation and habitat preservation and perhaps art or, not art, but a permanent installation that isn't consistent with that wouldn't be an allowable use.
Oh, good point.
So that could be how they've interpreted over time
Mhm.
why there's no art or other permanent installations other than, you know, restrooms and.
But there is a process for if you wanna have an art class in the open space.
Sure, because that's considered education.
Yes, so, and we have a robust program that does that.
Mhm.
Cool.
this would be a great topic for our joint meeting in September.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, yeah. September is when we're meeting with Louisville.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
I will tee something up and I will send it to you and then Wesley and Ari as well before I hit send to Caps and Mark.
okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you. This, next item on the agenda was, kind of a thought or a question that occurred to me because I was, being eaten by mosquitoes in Alaska for the June meeting. I watched the June meeting and I noticed, when the conversation turned to our listing of property acquisition rankings, not the Boulder County ranking stuff that we did, but what do we rank first, Saharius or Town 15 or 76th Street, et cetera? There was a lack of enthusiasm for the process. And I
It was that obvious.
and I think it was, there were comments made, and I think it really derived from the fact of we're at kind of a steady state situation with viable properties for open space. And so I wanted to raise the question of whether this committee wanted to return to that exercise next year, or whether we use the rankings that we have that we settled on in June and let that sit unless there's a piece of property or some kind of unique development that kind of changes the status quo. It seemed like there was a lot of work everybody went through to reach essentially the decision that we reached the year before. And
The
the
one
year
reason
before
that I could think of for doing it again would be the 76th Street properties. Particularly given Mike shared with us tonight that council turned down what was, that's why we,
But
that would be the
Yeah,
only
but
reason.
you went ahead and ranked the 76th property.
Well, but what we ranked
because-
was the one that was
The
gonna
one-
be developed.
But didn't we also talk about that one and just say if it wasn't gonna be developed, it's not a great candidate for open space anyway, because it's just so packed around there already? Or-
Well, it's kind of chopped up and there's not,
Yeah, there's not a good,
This-
good of a court.
the parcels that are to the north of it, those would open up as well as that piece. That could give good access.
And you're saying we don't have those on there?
We didn't this year. And because there are two homes on there and they're both occupied. And
So-
then the one that lives in the
So-
northwestern one owns both properties.
Given that there's not, a lot of movement on property options and there's not a lot of cash in the piggy bank for acquisitions, do we want to put that annual exercise on hold unless there is a development or an opportunity or somebody makes an offer of,
I agree with what you say, we could review what we have, and if there's a material change, you have to change our ranking, then we can go through that, but if there's not, we'll look at it and like, nothing material has changed since we did it a year ago, then we just agree.
Well, we just reviewed it, right? So we just don't touch it until there's a material change.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, or we could, if there's an annual trigger to review it and say, has any material change happened to any of these properties, whether it's town owned or not, then if there hasn't been a material change, we can all just nod our head like, yep, we'll just keep it the same.
Yeah, so I agree, it's a tough process. But at least if we review and discuss, and I would just have you all reflect back to our number one goal.
Yeah.
And it's to advise the town council regarding acquisition and protection of natural lands and buffers using the open space fund.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first thing that you see on our committee goal. So at best, it's a review.
Yeah.
Or sending to council, nothing has changed since last time, but something so that they know that we're still committed to, or next work plan, we talk about needing to update our goals.
I think as long as that document's still living though, then we have that
Yeah.
feeds into that goal.
Yes.
Cause I thought of the same thing too. We're not, if we took the document away and we're like, well, we don't really have anything in place anymore, that'd be a different story.
Yeah.
Right.
I think as long as.
But that's not.
Yeah.
Still have a trigger on the calendar to evaluate it
Yeah.
each year, but just unless there's a material change, we don't go through all the
Yeah.
gymnastics of ranking all these
Yeah.
6 different
Right.
criteria for different problems.
Keep it in the work plan.
Yeah, keep it in the plan so that we can say it's a up-to-date document.
Yeah.
Of not having to go through each property and get 4
So
or 5
I
different
hear
criteria.
leave on the annual calendar a conversation about the ranking, but make it optional as whether we go through that exercise again. Is that? what-
Yeah.
Or keep it as a living document.
Yeah, and I think it was more salient too when we were putting a parcel on the Boulder County request every year, because we
Yeah.
could refer back to that and be like, okay, well, whichever priority, let's put that on there. Well, we've kind of learned that that's not going to too many places right now.
Okay, thank you. This last item was an item that I think may have got dropped from the May meeting. We had a debrief conversation about Migratory Bird Day and the thought that maybe we could have a more successful event at a different time or different activities or something. But we just kind of dropped it. And I think if we drop it and we don't return to it until April of next year, we'll wind up with the same event, same place, the same time. So I was going to ask whether there's anybody that wanted to take on a Migratory Bird Day planning exercise or brainstorming session with staff or with the rest of us to kind of do some planning for a better event next year.
I'm still not super clear on what the requirements are to maintain our bird city status for this event. This event needs to occur within a certain timeline.
Leslie, did you tell us that the event we have to do an event a year, but the timing and the nature of the event is open to us?
Actually, Pari probably knows a little bit better than I do. I think there's a traditional
national-
time frame.
Right.
There's a net,
I don't think we're
it's
held
Saturday,
to that.
May
We,
2027.
yeah.
Right.
I think
So
we have to
did
do
have
an
a
event.
After then, no.
World Migratory Bird Day is that day.
Yes, I'm sure there's a date, but Boulder County didn't do it on that day, right, this year. You know, they were a week or two
Yeah.
different from us and
I think
seemed like-
Kari does know the requirement, I think when she comes back in.
Okay.
And it's not so much, I think it's getting to what your point was, Amber, that it's not necessarily the date of it, but that it's within the window so that we don't expire on
Yeah.
our eligibility for
That's
Bird
good.
City
Good
USA.
point. Yeah.
I'm trying to look online to see if.
Let's just,
Yeah.
when she comes back.
I think we
Because,
have
I
to
mean-
do an event a year. We have to do it once a year. I think we can actually probably pick whenever we want to do it, but I would run that by Pari because she put together the application for the Bird City. And she probably knows a little bit better.
Do recollection, although I couldn't attend this one, was that the person who did the show with the birds, it was really good, but just wasn't as well attended, that perhaps we could include this activity at another time when there's more people, or combine it with another event. I thought that's what we talked about last time.
Could it potentially be
Could we combine it with
trail day?
and still be the
have the
requirement?
word focus.
I think you gotta hear, here she is, let's ask her what the next year,
Oh, she's got COVID.
because we're all kind of guessing.
Were your ears burning? We were talking about
So many questions.
do you know what our obligation is for an event relative to Migratory Bird Day? In terms of timing or nature of the event?
Have to be in that week or two, or is it?
It's, from what I've learned, unless they've refreshed it from that year when we received our cert, was for us to host an event or like, some type of like community workshop or anything that goes around like education, the theme of the year, that has to, it just needs to involve the community, I think that's what it is.
Does it have to be that same week or 2
It
weeks?
doesn't have to be, it's like,
We do it at trail studies, what
Or-
the idea that
you just, I think it has to be like its own entity. It has to be separate from National Trail.
And I would also say, if I can just jump in here, for some of the great events that we've had with our Migratory Bird Day experience, it's been the nature walks with leaders who can show us the various wildlife around Bose Pond and Purple Park. And while we could incorporate something like that on Trails Day, that time of year and location, at best, you're really looking for raptors.
Yeah.
Which are wonderful when you see them at Holton Trailhead, but you're gonna have a more target-rich environment in another location in town for migratory birds.
So, anybody, Mike, are you gonna say something? Does anybody want to raise their hand and take this on as a project for the next year?
Cause I know that with Bird Day, when they, on their website, on how they presented like in their organization and through what the, why am I blanking on the organization, the one that's out in Boulder?
Birds of prey.
No. It's the organization where we get the certification from.
Oh.
I'm blanking out, but what they've expressed to us, and my understanding is, when you're in the North Americas, you usually host it in May. When you're in the South Americas, you host it in October, or September, because that's when like the migration pattern happens. That was my understanding, and then I think it's Lafayette that reached out to us recently that they're doing theirs in September.
Yeah.
So that's different, because they usually do it, I think, in May as well. A lot of the cities around here usually do them around May. So it's more of like, I don't wanna step on anyone's toes, find the right weekend. I try to figure out like, when is the weekend, like maybe, Boulder County's not doing theirs, they did like a whole weekend, so I avoided that. So that we don't, overlap with anyone else. I would have to check with them, because if they're doing it in September, and if we move it to like later in the fall, that might be better. I'm not too sure, but it's, I think what made sense to me to do in May was because it was before Youth Corps.
Yeah.
And all the planning that goes ahead of time to reach out to folks.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we need to move it
Oh, yeah.
on the calendar, but you do a lot of work and bring in a lot of people, and it's an anemic event, in terms of community participation, and I think
And I
we
think,
should strive to do a better job.
I think we need to go back to the feedback with the feedback we had that we talked about, right? Because I think one of the things we said wasn't it like CU graduation day?
Well,
Yeah.
All the grads.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all the graduation,
It's
so I
really
think,
hard.
like, I think even moving it off, some of those dates would really help.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's such a busy time because it's like right before summer too, and it is graduation month for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
So overlaps, there's just so many things happening in like the schools and everything in general. So I'm not opposed to moving it to a different month. It's just, it would be hard to do it in the summertime because.
Or earlier in May.
Yeah, it could be, Yeah, I think I didn't want to do in April because the weather, I just wasn't sure. It's always a gamble. So I thought
Early May, high school students are usually taking
Going to prom,
going to
Yeah.
prom, so,
so the parents are.
yeah.
the moving is
Okay,
gonna be not this
not
much.
seeing the volunteer.
Melissa, so I will help out because the Raptor monitoring program always has a desk, or at least we have for the last 2 years. My only question is, I really don't know what's involved with it because like National Trails Day, this committee has moved away from doing a lot of the planning. Town staff does that. So, I mean, I'll be your partner. I don't know what town staff does and what we would do. Glad to help, happy to help. I just don't know how it's different from National Trails Day or July 4th, or, I mean, I get the context is different, but in terms of what it takes to plan the events.
Yeah, a lot of it is relied on town staff just because when we reach out to other organizations or municipalities to have them involved, it's reaching to their staff members. And you usually get like a better response time when they know you're, a representative of a town wanting their participation. And like, Lafayette, it was their staff members that reached out to me. It's not a volunteer or anything like that. So I think it sets like a different, I don't know, but I'm not opposed to that or anything, but I think even Leslie, I remember she brought this up saying that the difference, like when I think about the history of like National Trails Day, we've done that. I think this was year 14 that we've done it versus Bird Day is just year 2. And it is such a niche thing versus trails. Like everybody goes on trails, and then birding is such a very niche hobby passion. So I just don't know, like when I think of like Lafayette, I don't know, they were the first ones to do it. I don't know how many years they've done it for a long time. And they've gained a lot of traction over the years. So for me, it's just when I attended their event to see, I think they usually do it at Wanaka Lake. It's just they've created a lot of different partners and groups that look forward to that event, and it is a bigger space than ours. It's around the whole lake that they're scattered in.
Let me work with you because also, I mean, she's talking about the Lafayette invitation that she sent to wildlife management, or wildlife encouragement, as well as Raptor. We're gonna be there in Lafayette in September. So might have lessons that we can apply to. So glad to help. I just don't know what I'm signing up for.
Thank you. I just feel like we could put together an event that, or an educational something that the town would be a little more proud of and, but maybe
I
participate.
think it's a matter of marketing too, that I've noticed, because it is fairly new. And a lot of people that we've stumbled upon, who might come to our booths, like they stumble upon it like by mistake.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, I didn't know. Yeah, and they're just, they see it.
This is a temp, but
So
give
I
us
don't-
good feedback in terms of like, they
Yeah.
liked the experience when they came.
Yeah, but the people who are, that's why like when we had like Dave host the bird walk, that's intentional, right? People have to sign up to show up to that. And he had like 20 people show up because they come for that. So that's why I say it is such a niche thing. Yeah, and it's more of like, I think marketing, and I'm not in the, knows, I don't know what comms, like how they do their scheduling of sending out information. It's just a matter of like, they ask me for the content and I send it. I don't know who sees it. I don't know any of that. So I don't know if it's reaching people. That's my thing. Because people know about National Trails Day, and that reaches a lot of people, but also that is a thing that has existed for a long time.
But you know what, you say that, like 5-6 years ago, this committee had to do a lot of work for that. And now it just seems.
Promote it.
Yes, and to make sure, like, what booths do we wanna have? And we would brainstorm, and granted, town staff would be the ones that would secure those guests, but it was debated about in here, and now it's magical.
It happened automatically.
I mean, the tents are there, so I think to the point that we're 2 years for, City USA here. In town, in time, it'll be an event.
I think it's catching on because there was also some people that I've talked to this year too that came last year.
Yes.
And then they a family or something, and they said, oh, we were looking forward to this because we were here last year.
Yeah.
So I think it's starting to gain traction. I think it's more of like marketing and talking about it and just, just talking to our neighbors to say, hey, this exists. You don't even know about the signs that are posted even.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you both for offering to help. I think the rest of us, I'll raise my hand. I'm willing to help if you need help so that we've got a better event next year.
Just for
Thank you.
comparison, how many people came, do we estimate to the Trails Day?
Trails Day usually gets around, for the last couple of years, and this was like this year was based off of, we didn't get counts. It's usually count the people who entered, but the previous years was about 400. Yeah, trail on birthday, I think the highest number.
Which
It was booth.
it wasn't us, because we were kind of the information introductory.
But I would say the last 2 years with National Trails Day, working those booths, we get a lot of traffic just because of the location.
Exactly, because you have people.
Like, what's going on? We're on our way to Cisco, but, yeah,
Okay,
pastors.
thank you. We have 10 minutes left. I'm gonna try and break the reading rule. How about standing updates? Raptor program.
Yeah, so it continues to be really exciting in our town with the raptor monitoring observations, largely because of the great nesting activity. So back in May, there was a lot of great horned owl activity across town, and it really led to our volunteers multi-reporting undoubtedly, because we all wanted to see what was going on. So a lot of duplicate, and I would say May and June similar with the red-tailed hawk activity, because many of us just know key nests and we just want to go see where those fledglings, right? But so for the months, I kind of just did a report for the team, raptor team, but from May through July we had 118 observations. And I mean, it's hard to really say what does that number mean, because honestly, it's July and it's hot, and we're not seeing as many as we did in June, but we're still 118 the last couple of months. Great horned owls 32, red-tailed hawks 45, 25 American kestrels, 8 Cooper's hawks, 3 bald eagles, 2 burrowed owls, a peregrine falcon, a prairie falcon, Swainson hawk, and an unidentified raptor. And I know that sounds kind of lame, maybe.
I'm good at
What's
identifying those.
But you know what? So what is great about it though, and because I think any kind of birding raptor monitoring can be very intimidating to someone who's a novice. And so by just saying unidentified, it's helpful, because what they'll do in the sit-side program is they'll describe behavior. And so from that, you can start saying, well, this is kind of how a red-tailed hawk behaves. Or so we're learning as volunteers as well. So no, it's going great. I don't have a raptor walk scheduled yet. I imagine we'll have one in August, not in July. And next time I do, yeah, it is really hot. We like to go 10 to 12, 10 to noon. Yeah, it's warm. So maybe in August, but I will send out an invite. The last couple of walks I didn't send out an OSAC invite, and I don't know why, but maybe you'd like to join us. Okay. Always welcome.
Anything new on Coyote Ridge? I did hear you, Leslie, say that the consultants want to meet with the subcommittee. I'll help coordinate that. Anything?
I think we talked a lot, signage was the main thing that we kind of went through, and I think the point solutions.
Nothing additional from me.
Yeah. I think they did a great job at the 4th of July event. I like the visual that they had, and I think they got good enough feedback.
Leslie, you said that their questionnaire, their survey was going to stay live. It'd be nice if we could get that advertised. And if it's possible to make little 5x7 cards with a QR code or something that we could stick at a couple of the Coyote Ridge trailheads to capture the people that are using the area. That might generate some information that's useful to them.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's too big a lift or not, but
Anything that makes a sample size.
yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna.
I thought it was a great survey, but it needs more people.
It's gonna be posted on the Frozen newsletter and then some other platforms, so sent to comms already, like the QR code and everything, information about that, all the content was sent to comms yesterday.
But the Coyote Ridge idea is good, people
I
around.
think Leslie said they're gonna put a poster or something out here.
There is one up there.
Oh, there's, okay,
Yeah.
so people coming through here, they're, okay, good. Input provided.
Wildlife monitoring,
Tracy sent out a thing and I think she copied everybody here and there were 110 observations. The interesting thing was that most of the observations were from the camera.
Yeah.
Like wildlife monitoring cameras. And so that's good. And they keep moving the cameras around and catching different things. So they've seen everything from elk, deer to turtles. So
I'm learning that McCaslin underpass that Rock Creek passes through stays wet, even though that upper part of Rock Creek is dry as a bone.
yeah, it's
Right
funny
now.
how that
I think it's
stays wet.
finally starting to dry, like I monitor that one, today it looked like it's finally maybe dry now. So you're right, it's been kind of almost half flooded looking for a long time, so the only thing we get is one raccoon a night walking through it. One night he got his fight with another raccoon.
Wildlife management plan.
It's coming along. We're all working on our own little portions of it. And we've been meeting monthly and we're meeting again on Monday. We meet on the third Monday.
Kudos to you. You've been moving straight ahead on that and have organized a group of people working hard on that
Well,
document.
people are really working hard and I appreciate everybody taking their little bit and going with it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll pull something together and we'll have a broad plan and then we'll have some community guidelines, which I think, the broad plan would be for the town. The guidelines will be for the people for a quick, what do I do? What am I looking at?
Gordon, East County?
I've been trying to get together with the twosome, to specifically talk about the fire issues that Christie talked about. Our cohort from Louisville has been MIA for quite a while. He just surfaced today.
Oh.
And he's still gonna be gone for another 2 or 3 weeks. But, Casey Lyons from Lafayette's available, so, I thought it would make sense, probably try to get together with, Mark from Louisville coming up to talk about planning for the joint meeting that we're gonna do.
Are we still on for a September joint meeting with Louisville, Leslie? Yes.
Luckily, your microphone is muted.
Oh, sorry. Yes, we're still on track. Sorry about that. Talking to myself.
And that may.
And we're gonna meet in Louisville.
Meeting in Louisville, because this will be closed.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Gordon, what were you saying?
And we may want to get together to talk about what we would like as a group to have in the joint meeting.
Okay.
I don't know if that happened.
Should we-
did that last year.
Should we make that part of the August meeting?
Yeah.
Bullet points for Louisville,
I can outline some suggested
please.
things to kick around.
Okay. Pardon me?
August is gonna be a packed agenda.
It doesn't look too bad. I was putting together during this meeting,
Okay.
but it kind of depends on how much time we spend on any given night. So it's a good point.
That's true.
Okay, we have 2 minutes left.
I have a night.
Oh.
Sorry. This can be very, very quick. Kara and I heard from somebody who came to our booth at the 4th of July that he made a recommendation on our dog versus coyote. He really liked the prints, where you have which is a dog and which is a coyote.
Yeah.
He goes, I'd like to, if you would add like some of the other animals that are found in the area,
That's right.
like a bobcat and so forth. And so Kara was thinking that was a great idea. And we go, yeah. And she even suggested it'd be even better if we could get them like in the snow. Cause that's where like most of us would most likely see them.
Yeah.
So I'm just throwing that out again as for somebody else to do.
Yeah. We have time. We
I
have
don't
time
have-
to up the game before, you know.
I mean, the only camera I've got.
Phones are a little bit dated, let's just say.
Yeah.
They've
All
been
the kids-
kept
all
around
the
for at
kids
least 6 years.
But we still get people to come and play.
So I think in general, it'd be good to refresh our materials at the booth. And I think we talked about this a few months ago, but I think we just need to keep it on a future agenda item and
Yeah.
because we won't have one, to your point, for a while, unless we move the date. But I think, and that could be part of it, but I think in general, we kind of had some of the same stuff for a while, so I think it'd be good to have.
Yeah, I felt a little funny doing the footprint thing.
Yeah.
At the migratory bird day. On migratory bird day, you know, we
Yeah.
have a bird identification.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a good point.
One more quick thought, because it wasn't on the agenda, but, feedback for July 4th. So one thing I think that we could have done better as a team and working with you, Kari, is if leading up maybe in the June meeting, if we had our sign-up sheets, so we weren't scrambling for volunteers. It seemed like last minute, we could have done that better. And so, just something to consider for our next work plan before an event. And then maybe next time we have an event, we have an after action.
Nice picture you sent out. Thank you to those of you that.
Yeah, that was a great pick. And we used to do that, but then the town changed process too. And I know you emailed about that, but the town kind of changed the process too, so you get an email knock from the town.
Yeah.
Asking
So
you,
bizarre.
no, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. I agree with Kara. I think we still should have a sign up.
Sorted out.
Because,
like internal.
yeah.
Yeah, that's Jamie Osborne that's sending out volunteer opportunities, but we're already kind of doing that.
Yeah.
Leslie, you have your hand up.
So we did not have the Marshall Fire Remembrance Project on the agenda, but I do want to let folks know that the design consultants will be doing a presentation at the Louisville City Council on July 14th. So that's next Tuesday. If anybody wants to tune in or go, they're welcome to, but it's really just an informative presentation, very similar to what they did to our town council. So just FYI.
I have one last update I forgot to share earlier. On Monday, at the council meeting, we'll be interviewing.
Exactly, yeah.
Candidates, so if you're interested, tune in, because I think Ari and Leslie are gonna be asking for input and feedback.
I was gonna ask about that, because are we still part of that process? Like when we had the staff member come and present, that we would be reviewing the applicants? Yes. Are we still doing that? As a
We haven't seen
I
it.
don't
We
think
haven't seen anything.
That's how.
No, we're supposedly part of
That
that
was
process
supposed
now.
to be, yeah, that was supposed to be the change. I agree.
Oh, okay.
She came and presented. to us.
She came and presented and said that when they had somebody, they were going to send us their application. So we could
Let
read
me
it.
follow up with our
Okay.
committee folks on that, because I don't know why we're not, except that we're so desperate for members across the board.
Yeah,
But
but yeah, and that's why I know this team did a lot of work to at least provide recommendations for what town council members, what kind of questions our committee
Right.
would like to answer. Because unfortunately, we have just been resume fodder for people in the past who've come to a meeting and then pulled chalks and left. They weren't serious, so.
Yeah.
So I think-
I'll follow up on that. I don't have a
Well, I-
definitive answer.
We do have in the board packet specific interview questions that OSAC has asked, or has asked us to ask,
Okay, good.
so.
And I-
they always get asked.
and I think when I asked you, Leslie, whether we had access to their application materials, you said, no, we do not.
She's gonna check.
You're gonna check, yeah.
Yeah, they're not open and available to the general public, but I remember that we did have that discussion about committees having input. So I'll check into that.
And that was not our idea, that was a town staff person who came and said, by the way, you're gonna be involved in this process.
And I thought that was great.
Michaela, because he started here with Sarah.
So I will attend that meeting if no one else can. I will attend, other people are welcome, but I'll also note when on the recording that interview takes place, and I'll let you know in case you just want to watch the.
It's, right after public comment, so it's
Oh,
like the
great.
second thing, say the Pledge of Allegiance, we take public comment, and then it's committee interviews.
Todd's ready to fire off that first onboarding packet, aren't you?
Okay, we're adjourned. It's 8:05.
Thank you.
Good job.